Okay, dimension 2, which Haugaard calls structure and Fleming and Spicer call manipulation. Manipulation is, as it sounds, agenda setting. The person who sets the agenda gets to decide what people talk about and what we don't talk about. Structure can constrain and enable. Dimension 2 power is when you're the person who sets the conditions of possibility. So you're the one who says, nope, not that, like that. You can choose between these things. And there's also this idea of structuration and destructuration, which I will talk to you about. So this one is attempts to ensure that action and discussion occur within accepted boundaries. But who decides the boundaries? That's the thing. So Barak and Baratz developed this second face or dimension of power. They drew attention to the structural aspect of power. It's a very political thing. Some issues are organised in, others are organised out. They wanted to draw attention to the fact that the things that are organised out can be as important as the things that are organised in. And we'll also talk about Giddens' theory of structuration, which shows that the constraining aspects of social structures are linked to the enabling. So enabling and constraining just depends who you are. That's it. Okay. So one of the things is bias and discrimination. In this picture of all the Science Nobel Prizes, there are only 2 women. And this is due to structural bias. Even when we try not to be biased, we're still biased. This is why we need to have policies and like DEI policies, and we need to be really aware of when we are being biased or when we might be biased. It's not destiny, but it is a natural thing. It's an unconscious bias towards our in-group. And remember, we talked about social identity theory in week 2. Here's one about setting the agenda. So we had a Royal Commission into banking, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people said that they wanted to talk about consumer credit leases and payday lending, which are things that affect Aboriginal communities, but these were excluded from the brief of the Banking Royal Commission. So they were organised out of the conversation. Holsti, one of my favourite writers, by posing some questions and not others, we limit the range of answers. It's not the same as this, but that's why when I talk about critical thinking and I say, what other questions can you ask? This is what I mean. The more questions you ask and the more variety of questions you ask, the better the range of answers that you will get to choose your solutions from. I just saw this one recently. Tokenism is when people are sort of put in the room to represent a minority, either whether that's women or people of color or whoever, but really they have no power to input into the decision because there's only one and it's a vote and there's 12 other people. So it's when you sort of pretend to be consulting everybody, but actually you're not. And so this article is about highlighting the role of power in that and how to make inclusion actually meaningful and not just tokenistic. Here we have, we know on social media that the algorithms choose what we see. I bet you $1 million that there's not a single thing in my top 100 posts that are in yours. No, not $1 million, $2. Anyway, but even to the extent of certain accounts being shut down for no good reason. Um, but it's super tricky, right? Because we want them to shut down Nazi accounts, but we don't want them to, so I don't want them to shut down LGBTQI accounts or women's rights accounts. I'd be happy if they shut down manosphere accounts. So who decides what's appropriate and what should be acceptable on social media? It's hard to know who decides this. The UN Security Council has a structure. It has, I think we talked about this, it has the five permanent members who can veto laws. This is an issue with its structure because legally they can do this, even though it's patently ridiculous and patently unfair, because it says it in the rules, and because we give so much legitimacy to rules, then they just get away with it, and we haven't done anything about it for decades. So laws don't always follow social norms, and laws don't always work for at all, and sometimes they don't work for some people. For example, the over incarceration of Aborigines in Australia. Clearly, the laws that we have or the structures that we have that are supposed to support or whatever they're supposed to be doing, they're not working for some people in our society. Laws here on intellectual property, patents, etc., these protect the inventors or the people who own the rights to the invention, but they don't actually solve global health problems. So they protect one thing while limiting something else. So it just depends who gets protected and who doesn't get protected. And these are the relations of power that we look at when we're thinking critically. Again, access to the people who are making the laws. We talked about this in governance, about state capture of governance last week. It's very cheap to buy a $2,000 or $3,000 plate at a special dinner as a lobbyist. Get in, talk to the minister over a few drinks. But if you are a anti-protest laws, anti-climate inaction, you can get fines up to $50,000 and actually go to jail. So protesters have less direct access to the people who are making the laws. Now the laws are stricter and it goes around in a circle. Here is an extreme case of that, where incumbent presidents or incumbent political parties change laws, change constitutions, do whatever they do to make it almost impossible not to get back into power, which I believe that's what happened in China. And not, it doesn't just have to be changing the law. They can, it can be so corrupt that they end up with all the money and all the power and all the influence as well. So yeah, I mean, even Hitler and Mussolini were elected first, but then things changed because they were in a position of power. They could change things, so it made it very difficult to get rid of them. We've looked at a lot of negatives. 2D power is necessary for us to function. How would you like it if you came up to the traffic lights and nobody knew what red and green meant? That wouldn't be very good. So it also enables us to do work because it gives us guidelines. It tells us what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. It tells us which bin to put our rubbish in. It tells us that when you buy something, you give money and the person gives you a thing. And if the thing doesn't work, you've got the law on your side to go back and say, hey, this thing doesn't work. Sports have rules so that you can, it works. It makes life predictable, manageable. And it means that we have these shared ideas of how our society works. It doesn't have to be laws. It can just be it can be social mores. Okay, structuration is Giddens' idea that the laws don't just exist and that's it. Every day we confirm structure or destructure. So let's say I say to you, how are you today? And you say, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? You would be confirming structure. You would be saying that this social interaction is what's expected and we like it and we want to keep doing it. This is what's called a felicitous response and a legitimate response. This is what structuration, and this is what Berger and Luckman are talking about when they say that society is socially constructed, because every day the routines that we do, the things that we do, the things we say, the things we don't say, the things we don't do, all these things confirm the structure that we're living in, confirm the reality that we're living in. And so if we don't want to live in that reality, then we have to do things a little bit differently, do things that are infelicitous or illegitimate. Whether that is actually illegal or not is a different question, which, yeah, law is not always right or fair. Okay, legitimation is that, so Berger and Lackman said that these exercises of power, including defining what reality is and making relations of power seem natural and inevitable, these have to be legitimated. You can't just say, okay, I'm the boss of you. You have to say, I'm the boss of you because, and this is why it's a good idea. Whether that's because it's in the organizational structure, or you signed up for this when you took the job, or this is the way it works better if there's somebody to direct everybody's work, blah, 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 blah. These are exercises of legitimation. So there's two parts to it. One is rationalizing, which is it logical? And the other one is justifying. Is it right? Is it fair? And if enough people come out and say this is not rational and this is not fair, then this is when existing reality or the existing power relations are challenged. Okay, here's an example we discussed in class. Murdoch University has a late submission policy. It says that assessments submitted after the due date without approval will not be marked and you'll get 0%. So we will talk about, is this a fair rule? Who wrote the rule? What is it there? What's the purpose of the rule? Is it a good purpose? Is it, does everybody know this rule? Who pays the consequences of breaking the rule? How important is it to question the rules? So anyway, you can think about that. Personally, I think it's a bit harsh, that policy. Pope Leo wrote an encyclical. It's like I don't know, a long letter, I guess. He talked about technology and that it's not just a tool. It decides what we can and can't do. It limits our options. So it's part of creating structure and controlling the agenda and everything like that. So it's not neutral. It takes on the characteristics of those who devise it, finance it, regulate it, and maybe that says use it. Yeah. So it while it appears neutral, it isn't, and it does structure our society to a degree. That's his message. Now, I want you to watch this video. It is brilliant. The big message is all the rules are made up. All the rules are made up. Please watch the video. Last question that I had in here was like a debate. Is speech power? And you can think about that. So there's a saying that says the pen is mightier than the sword. But there's also a quote from Berger and Luckman that says that the historical outcome of each clash of gods was determined by those who wielded the better weapons rather than those who had the better arguments. That basically says the complete opposite of the previous slide. So have a think about it, see what you decide. This is rather a Machiavellian way of looking at things, the other more idealistic. Whatever you think.